People who grow up overly protected and mollycoddled tend to become adults who are very much impaired when it comes to managing their life and the conflicts that arise in day-to-day interaction. I see this all around me. I see it a bit too frequent for my comfort. Adult temper tantrums, calling the police for nonsense, frivolous lawsuits, demanding to speak to the manager. The list goes on. When I was a kid, we used to ride bikes to school. We made forts in the woods. We collected at arcade parlors, organized our own sports games. There were no adults watching over us, and that's how we first learned how to deal with conflict on our own. We had to learn how to get along with others, or else we'd be outcasted from the social circle. There were no safe spaces. There was no anti-bullying campaign. No one was coming to your rescue if you had a problem with another kid. Parents and teachers used to give a situation the opportunity to work itself out. They knew that young people had to learn to stand up for themselves and figure out how to negotiate social situations. Then in the mid-1980s, I started to see this notion of helicopter parents. Parents who were overly involved in their child's life and had the ridiculous idea that if they kept their child sheltered enough, they'd never have to experience pain, discomfort, or disappointment. These parents also knew that they couldn't be there 24/7. So they began to demand that the schools keep a close, watchful eye on their little angels. The natural outcome of this sentiment was children being programmed to appeal to authority. We were instructed in school that if something happens, your first order of business is to go get a teacher, tell your parents, get an adult, and let them handle the situation for you. In fact, it was suggested that it was your duty and responsibility to let a teacher or adult know what was going on. But we called kids who did this tattletales or narcs, which was a term for snitches. And we could see over time that these kids were not developing normally. They were unable to function socially. I have some bad news for all of you. Conflict is a part of life, and it'll be a part of life from the cradle to the grave. People are going to be pushing boundaries and giving you crap, no matter what age you are, who you are, for the rest of your life. I'm sure that you all knew kids at school or people in your life that are constantly looking to start some sort of friction. And guess what? They grow up to be adults who act like that. You can't get away from it, so you better learn to deal with it. I used to own a business which cleared out homes for realtors. And I can remember doing a job at an assisted living center where I met the most contentious, nasty little old man. He actually got in my face at one point and threatened me for propping the back door open to load furniture of a deceased resident. Now, this guy must have been 80 years old. A stiff wind would have blown him down. For a moment there, I was in shock. Like, is this really happening? Well, it was. So I looked down at him since I was about 6 or 8 inches taller. And I calmly told him that the management instructed me to prop the door open, and the sooner I got back to my job, the sooner this door could be closed. Well, he called me some names under his breath that I can't repeat here, and then he left. That's when the other seniors who lived at the facility came around and they started to tell me what a terrible bully this man was and how they would try to avoid him at all costs, even to the point of leaving the cafeteria mid-meal when he would come in. I'll never forget that day. I learned something very valuable. Conflict will be a part of your life, whether you like it or not, until the day you die. So you're going to need to learn to deal with it because there won't always be somebody to run interference for you. It seems today that many people run to authority or have a total meltdown at the first sign of an uncomfortable situation. The internet is full of Karen and Ken memes. Essentially, what are these people? Well, for one, they're people who think that it's their job to act as society's hall monitors and keep everyone around them in check. And two, these are people who are grossly failing at conflict resolution because they lack basic communication skills. That's why they tend to throw adult temper tantrums and ask to speak with the manager. When the manager comes up, they proceed to yell at them as if it's their fault for what's happening and their fault that they're upset. Today, many people want to be protected more than they want to grow and develop into functional adults capable of handling their own issues. And more important, they don't seem to want to be responsible or accountable for their actions and decisions. That's why they'd prefer to pass this on to an authority figure. They need to feel protected and babied at all times, resulting in people who don't develop the tools of conflict resolution. Therefore, they perceive relatively benign annoyances as threatening. They become incredibly distressed when those around them aren't handling them with kid gloves, tiptoeing around them, making sure that they're comfortable at all times. Let me just tell you, your mom and dad may have catered to you and built a protective bubble around you, but the world at large won't. Functional people don't demand that the world mold itself to their liking. Rather, they adapt to fit into the world in which they find themselves. The time to learn these skills is when you're young and the stakes are relatively small. For example, would you rather fall off your bike when you're 10 years old, riding at 5 miles an hour? Or would you prefer your parents kept the training wheels on and then someday you're going to take a header off a motorcycle? At some point, we need to learn to function without someone holding our hand. Now, I know what you're all thinking. That's all fine and good, Mr. Preacher, but I need some actionable steps that I can employ when a conflict arises. Well, unfortunately, I can't give you an answer to that, because how we conduct ourselves is a matter of our age, experience, emotional maturity, status, and how we are as a people in terms of our personality. What works for me is probably not going to work for you. While it may seem easier to just let somebody step in and pinch hit for you, it's going to come at a large cost down the road. Your development's going to be hamstrung. My only advice is to learn these skills. Practice these skills right now in a low consequence environment. Learn to speak up for yourself wherever your development level is. You don't want to find yourself like some of these adults that are uncomfortable returning a hamburger when they ask for no pickles. So start where you are and embrace the discomfort. I promise you, it's going to serve you later in life. Don't be so quick to give up your personal sense of agency, i.e. the capacity to act independently and be the director of your own life. Once you willingly give that up, it's very difficult to get it back. And the longer that you don't learn to speak up for yourself and handle conflicts, the more difficult it's going to be for you. So start today.